Hello, everybody. It is Saturday evening in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. My name is Adam Bittner, assistant sports editor for multimedia at the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette, joined for our Steelers Day 3 NFL Draft recap by Christopher Carter. He's down on the south side. This video is sponsored by Mike's Beer Bar. They hosted our NFL Draft live stream the past 2 days. Big shout out to them for being great hosts. Hundreds of local beers and beers from around the world available. Also get the steak on the stone. Check it out if you haven't already. Chris, day 3's in the books. Lots of action. We might get to Shedeur Sanders at the back half of this video, but I do want to talk about the players the Steelers did select. I think the headline for a lot of people is going to be Will Howard, even though they selected him in the 6th round. He selected a couple guys before that, but he's the quarterback in the group. We talked for months and months and months about how they're going to add to this quarterback room. They add Will Howard in the end. Could you assess that pick for me and where you think the Steelers might go with him in the future? Is it Landry Jones, Mason Rudolph? Is that the upside here, or does he have a chance to be a starter in this league at some point?
Listen, I've been saying for about like a month or so that he measures out to be a Mason Rudolph when you look at what Will Howard brings to the table. When you look at how he plays, just his size too, like his if you look at height, arm length, hand size, like a lot of those very similar as far as body type. Physical, can take the tough plays. Can make a big throw here and there. Now, I think that Mason Rudolph doesn't have. I think he had a bit more to his range as far as his passing game. He also had a Bittner wide receiver working for him, while Will Howard had one of the more talented receiver groups in the NFL in college football working for him. So they had that in common. But I think Will Howard is a solid backup quarterback. I've said this for months. This is a backup quarterback draft class. I had him slotted to the Steelers in the 4th round for many of my mocks. So for them to get in the 6th round, I think that's great value. So again, like I don't think this was ever going to be a franchise quarterback draft class year. I think this is the year where the Steelers are looking to get guys, a young guy in the building who learns the offense, can be, a helping hand whenever someone goes down, and can be someone that you keep in the organization for a rainy day, which you need those. I mean, heck, that's what Mason Rudolph's been for most of his career, right? So I think that's exactly what they got in Will Howard.
Other Ohio State guy, the first pick of the day was Jack Sawyer, also out of Ohio State, the linebacker, edge rusher type of situation. He had that game-breaking play against Texas in the college football playoff semifinal. I think that was in the Cotton Bowl. Scores the game-winning touchdown, sends them on to the national title game, which they win against Notre Dame. He's also kind of a heart and soul guy, Chris. I don't know if people remember the scrum at the end of the Michigan-Ohio State game, where Michigan was kind of trying to take over the field after pulling the huge upset of the Buckeyes. Jack Sawyer was in the middle of that, furious that they would disrespect the Buckeyes that way. He seems like a real program guy, and I know something a lot of people have talked about with the Steelers is who are these program guys going to be for them moving forward as the Cam Haywards of the world, TJ Watt, probably closer to the end of their Steelers careers than the beginning. What does Jack Sawyer add intangibly, and then what does he add as a football player?
It's tough to say intangibly until we see him in the NFL, but I mean, certainly he seems like a team first guy. He seems like a guy who believes in fighting for the team, being a leader, being a vocal person. I think that's really cool. But I mainly look at what he brings on tape, just as far as a player. I can't say I studied him deeply because I wasn't looking at edge rushers too much in this class. But the things that I was able to find real quickly, just on the day of drafting him, I think he's a solid backup edge rusher that can. I think he complements Nick Herbig well. Nick Herbig's a smaller, quicker edge rusher off the edge that's not as good against the run just yet. Jack Sawyer is a bigger, more physical guy that doesn't have the bend that Nick Herbig does, but he can be that run stuffing edge setter that I think that Nick Herbig can't be. And so he's going to help them in that regard. But it also, I think that people should not overlook, just because he was good against the run doesn't mean he can't rush the passer. He had the 4th most pressures of any edge rusher in college football last year, according to Pro Football Focus. So and that doesn't mean that he's an elite edge rusher. It just means that I think he's capable of doing it. So I look at at Jack Sawyer. And I think that, look, like some people might consider that a luxury pick. I think it was a meat and potatoes pick. I think he was maybe their best player available at that stage of the draft. And they just said, look, we need to shore up the outside linebacker room because they do need a fourth option there to have depth. And now this projects that if he can just be a solid player as a rookie, and you get called on him maybe 12 snaps a game, that can be enough to help you there. He can give Alex Highsmith and TJ Watt a breather alongside with Nick Herbig, and that can be kind of how you work. I don't think it's a bad thing to have on your team right now.
Yeah, we've learned when TJ Watt's gotten injured in the past that you really can't have enough depth at that position. And obviously, the contract extension talks are ongoing with the Steelers and TJ Watt, and that gives you another potential out in that situation, depending upon how things shake out. Chris, I believe it's pronounced Y.A. Brown,
Yes.
or Y.A. Black, correct?
Y.A. Black, yeah.
Yeah, he was the name that was sandwiched between the two Ohio State guys. Another defensive tackle. We talked for months about will the Steelers double dip? Will they really try to beef up this defensive line in this draft? They address it in the 5th round. What are your thoughts on him individually and how this defensive line looks coming out of this draft?
YA is going to be that meat stuffer that run stuffer that they put in the middle of their line. I don't know if he's a pure nose. Carl Dunbar wouldn't call him that. He called him more of a four-tech that's just going to be able to push the pocket. But I think he's just another interior presence who's going to be big, mean, physical, and push guys back. They need that. And Carl Dunbar, Steelers defensive line coach, also kind of talked about how, like, hey, he's like, we want competition, and he's like, we want people to have to earn their food. And he talked about, if you want your dinner, you better come take it. And I think that's what they're kind of pushing into the defensive line room now, because this is the crowded defensive line room. Not only do you have Derrick Harmon and Y.A. Black, but you still got Cam Heyward, you still got Keeanu Benton. They brought in Equale. They still got Isaiah Loudermilk. They got guys on guys in this room now, and now it's going to be like, okay, if you want your spot, you better come earn it. So I think they want that kind of a competition. I think Y.A. Black adds to that and certainly gives them a chance to compete there. And as far as that double dipping aspect, Derrick Harmon's still going to get the primary reps, but I think where Y.A. Black, he could be that guy that gets those 8 or 10 snaps throughout the game whenever they need that extra reprieve on the defensive line. If he works out, if he doesn't work out, he's a 5th round pick that didn't work out. That happens all the time. But he was a guy they brought in for their pre-draft visits. I think because they saw him as a potential late round guy that they could bring, who could be a solid guy for their environment. I think it's a solid pick there. And again, I said that they should double dip at defensive tackle with this deeper defensive tackle class. And I think it's good that they did here.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how he slots in next to Derrick Harmon, Cam Heyward, Keanu Benton, all of that. Chris, we almost got through a full draft without the Steelers giving out another patronage job, but they go and they get Carson Bruner in the 7th round. His father, Mark Bruner, was a tight end. He is now the West Coast area scout for the Steelers. Listen, I think he's a solid player. I remember seeing him quite a bit at Washington this season. As they joined the Big Ten, maybe you saw a little bit more Washington on TV than you do in other years. What does he add to this situation, if anything?
He adds a willing tackler. This is a guy who, he worked his way up to be a team captain, led his team in tackles and interceptions. He's going to fight hard. He fought hard to be on special teams. That's going to be exciting. You're going to see that he's going to bring that to you. And I think like that level player, like, yeah, I did think it was kind of cool when we were talking to him. He said, like, I'm at our family home out in coastal Washington. He's like, I am sitting on the couch that my dad, Mark Bruner, sat on in 1995 when the Steelers picked him in the 1st round. So that was kind of crazy. Also kind of like, how do y'all still have that couch? But at the same time, like, I thought that was kind of cool. But, I hear people on the nepotism part, and as far as like the Steelers do like to bring back, family and things like that. They like the connections of guys. You think about the Heyward brothers, the Watt brothers, the Edmonds brothers, and the things like that. That does happen. But this was what, a 6th round pick. So like, I don't think it was some. Yeah. What'd you say?
7th round.
There you go. So this was a 7th round pick who, you weren't when you're taking 7th round pick, those are basically UDFAs at this point that you just make sure that they don't have a choice of signing with you or not. They're just coming to your training camp. I thought it was an interesting pick. He's an interesting athlete. If he comes in and he does well, awesome. If he doesn't, oh well, it was a 7th round pick. But Carson Bruner certainly good upside for the linebacker position on special teams, and adding another depth linebacker to your unit.
Last pick of the draft was Dante Kent from Central Michigan. Were you surprised to see them go that direction when there were some interesting names still on the board? I had Logan Brown, Tez Johnson, Xavier Restrepo, all being out there, among the best available on Mel Kiper's board. And they all would have filled a need, I think, on some level for this team. They go with the small college guy instead. What were your thoughts on that pick at the end of the draft there?
Yeah, it also caught me off guard. I didn't have him anywhere on my big boards as far as someone I was even looking at, so I can't say I studied him too much in the short time that we look at him. But when I look at what he brings to the table, he's a fast guy, runs a 4.38 40-yard dash. He talked about how he was a he's been a kick returner, but he's been punt returning most lately. He's a faster cornerback. He plays. When I looked up his stats and where he lined up, he played mostly slot last year, more than twice as much slot as he did on the outside. So to me, this was another stab at like, hey, here's a late seventh round pick at the slot position. If it works out, great. If it doesn't, we got Beanie Bishop, and we'll rock out with that. So I think this was just another attempt to address that position and get a speedster in. And also, like you said, he helps with returns. Maybe he works out as a return man and a special teamer. He also talked about being a gunner. So yeah, I think that's purely what this was, just a smaller move that they thought might work out in the long run.
Chris, I'd be remiss not to get you out of here on some Shedeur Sanders talk. He ends up going in the 5th round to the Browns. Kind of crazy what they got going on up there between Deshaun Watson, Kenny Pickett, Dillon Gabriel, and Shedeur Sanders added in this draft. And then Joe Flacco is also in the mix up there as well. So that's 5 quarterbacks for one job. I don't know what they're doing. So A, any insight on that? And B, any insight on the Steelers deciding definitely not to go that route in the end, passing on him in the 4th round as well?
Well, if y'all missed my my rant on the live stream that I did, I told y'all it was a smokescreen. I said this was from the jump. That was always a smokescreen. The Steelers were never going in this direction, and like I thought there was a chance that in the 4th round maybe they could, because I was like, okay, that's actually where I do have Shedeur Sanders valued in this class, but it was never as a 1st round pick nor as a 2nd round. I just thought it made no sense for them to take him that early, and now you see that because all the NFL teams passed on him. I think what happened here was Shedeur Sanders is a quarterback prospect that doesn't have a lot of the elite traits that you want in quarterbacks. He doesn't have top tier arm strength. Doesn't have top tier speed. Doesn't even have like really good speed. Doesn't have really good size. So you have all those factors. The biggest thing he had going for him was his accuracy, which was on point. His throwing motion is very consistent, which is why he could be so precise. And then he also had going for him, his ability to kind of like, play through the tough moments of games. And those things are nice, but you need more things that are going to translate to being things that can rise you up as a quarterback. And that's why he fell so far. And I think one thing that was being revealed throughout the day through the people with inside sources on the draft process was that he was turning down interviews. He wasn't talking to certain teams because he felt like he could just turn them down. And you know what? There's a lot of guys that do that. Like that's not like Shedeur Sanders is so arrogant and so this, that, and the third. A lot of guys do that. The problem is that when the guys that normally do that, they do have like that first top 10 pedigree type pick of skill sets. And I think that Shedeur Sanders just didn't have that on his side. And so when you don't have that on your side, people aren't going to be as desperate to try to get you. So like Travis Hunter could pull that off, right? Because Travis Hunter was, the top one, one of the top prospects in this draft class. But Shedeur Sanders wasn't. I said he wasn't from the jump, and I think that led to some serious situations there. And I think the Steelers were like, yeah, like that was never the plan. The plan was to get these other positions in order. Heck, they picked Jack Sawyer before him. Like Derrick Harmon made a lot of sense. Caleb Johnson made a lot of sense. Jack Sawyer, I was like, okay, so like they really don't care where Shedeur Sanders goes, and lo and behold, he goes to the Browns. Like you said, that's going to be a crazy situation. I feel like Hard Knocks is already signing up to cover the Browns because Deshaun Watson, Joe Flacco, Kenny Pickett, Dillon Gabriel, and Shedeur Sanders. That's like the most ridiculous QB room of all time. I wouldn't be shocked if some of those guys move in rather short order because that's insane to even think about what OTAs would look like. So again, I don't think the Steelers. I don't hate Shedeur Sanders. I know a lot of people were like, "Oh, you hate Shedeur Sanders." Well, no, it's not that. I actually liked him. I liked him as a college player. I just think that when you're looking at NFL evaluations, you need them to check certain boxes, and you only checked like 2 of like the 6 boxes that I look at for quarterbacks, and that's not enough to gamble high on. I thought a 4th or a 5th round pick, that's kind of where you wanted to take him, and the Browns ended up taking him. It's going to be interesting to see how that plays out.
Well, I tweeted this. I felt like at times today the ESPN personalities were taking it more personally than the Sanders family itself was. Just because the facade they built up there as part of this whole conversation of they imbued that Colorado program with so much attention and so much premium TV space. Shedeur Sanders didn't ask College Game Day to go there, Chris. He didn't ask to play in those time slots all the time. That was ESPN's choice to gas the situation up in spite of how clearly the NFL valued him. So it was amusing to watch Mel Kiper Jr. melt down a little bit about that. But listen, we got a long way to go from here until training camp to talk about all this stuff. So if you enjoyed this video, please pop a like on it. Help us out in the YouTube algorithm. If you're joining us for the first time, please subscribe to the channel. Chris, you'll be back on the North Shore Drive on Monday, breaking things down in a little bit more detail. Looking forward to hearing your thoughts then, and we'll talk to you all again real soon.
Thank you for checking out this content from Post-Gazette Sports. If you watch this video on YouTube, please like the video and subscribe to our channel. For all of the sports coverage the Post-Gazette has to offer, visit post-gazette.com.